We all admire great leaders, the ones who inspire, the ones who show up consistently, even under pressure. But the truth is, what separates a good leader from a great one isn't how they perform
them
when
rickety
everything is
vans,
smooth.
them buses,
It's how they
them
respond
charter
when things get
buses,
messy,
when
people
the
get
train
tense,
stations
when
here
egos
in
clash,
downtown been
tempers
already
flare, and
fixed.
tensions
If
rise.
it was the same
Because let's
problem,
be
why is it
honest,
taking longer to
no
fix
matter
in
how
our
well you lead,
neighborhoods?
how kind you are,
Why
those
is the train
moments
taking so long to
always
fix? We got places to be.
the ones who challenge, push, resist, and great leaders, they don't get derailed by them.
You want to
They
know
don't
what
let
I gotta
difficult
say?
people define their leadership.
Jersey
Instead,
City
they rise above,
is so
navigate the
diverse.
moment, and laid with emotional
So why do we
intelligence,
treat
not
black
emotional
people the
reaction.
way we do? Oh, we need a medic.
This isn't
Right
about
here.
avoiding hard conversations or sugarcoating dysfunction. It's about learning the clever, intentional ways that smart, grounded leaders respond instead of react. And in this talk, we're going to break it down. Because handling difficult people is not just a skill, it's a leadership advantage. One that determines whether you escalate the tension or elevate the room. Let's dive in. When you're dealing with someone who's pushing all your buttons, the easiest thing in the world is to react. It's automatic. It feels justified. Someone throws anger at you and you throw it right back. Someone questions your leadership and your instinct is to defend. Someone's passive-aggressive and you want to snap. And let's be honest, sometimes it feels good to respond in kind. Feels like strength. Like power. But that's not leadership. Survival. And there's a massive difference between the two. The greatest leaders I know don't react emotionally. They respond intentionally. It's not that they don't feel the same triggers everyone else does. They're human, but they've learned the power of the pause. They've trained themselves to not be ruled by emotion in the heat of the moment. They understand that reactivity is often an emotional hijack, and it rarely leads anywhere productive. We've all seen it play out. A tense moment in a meeting. Someone undermines a suggestion, maybe even makes it personal. A leader who's reactive might lash out, shut the person down, or storm out of the room. But a leader who's learned how to respond instead of react, they lean back, they breathe, they get curious. What's really going on here? Is this person just disagreeing, or are they in pain? They stay calm because they understand that emotional regulation isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And I know in those moments, it feels like you're losing control by staying calm. But the truth is, you're taking control. You're reclaiming the conversation. You're stepping into a space where solutions live while others are still trapped in reaction mode. One of the reasons great leaders can respond instead of react is because they're anchored in something deeper than the moment. They're not swayed by every word or wound. They've done the work. They've faced their own insecurities, their own triggers, their own history. So when a difficult person shows up, they don't mirror that chaos. They model calm. And let me tell you, that kind of composure is magnetic. It's the kind of presence that makes teams feel safe. It's the kind of maturity that stops the spiral of toxicity before it begins. We often think strength is about volume. Who can talk louder, push harder, win the debate. But true strength is restraint. It's resisting the urge to say what you're thinking in that heated second. It's choosing to ask questions instead of making accusations. It's staying silent long enough to hear what isn't being said. I remember talking to a leader once who said, "I used to think my job was to be the loudest voice in the room. Now, I realize it's to be the calmest presence in the storm." That stuck with me because storms will come, especially when you're leading people, especially when the stakes are high. But leadership isn't about controlling the weather, it's about controlling your anchor. There's also something liberating that happens when you stop reacting. You take nothing personally. You stop wasting energy on proving you're right or proving someone else wrong. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to grow. Instead, you lead, you listen, you learn. And when you do speak, it carries weight. Because your voice hasn't been diluted by drama, it's been sharpened by discipline. And let me be clear, choosing to respond instead of react doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It doesn't mean you avoid hard conversations.
Them rickety
It means
vans,
you enter them
them
with
buses,
clarity.
them charter buses, When the train stations here in downtown been already fixed, if it was the same problem, why is it taking longer to fix in our neighborhoods? Why is the train taking so long to fix? We got places to be. You want to know what I gotta say? Jersey City is so diverse. So why do we treat black people the way we do? Oh, we need a medic. Right here.
It happens when one leader at a time decides that emotional reactivity will not define their leadership. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, pause. Ask yourself, what outcome do I really want here? If it's peace, lead with peace. Lead with peace. If it's growth, respond in a way that invites it. Don't let your emotions be the driver. Let your values lead the way. Because leadership isn't about always being right. It's about always being grounded. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, until your response reflects who you really are, not just how you feel in the moment. Strong leaders don't react to the noise, they respond to the need. One of the most underrated skills in leadership, especially when dealing with difficult people, is the ability to set clear expectations and firm boundaries. I'm not talking about micromanaging. I'm not talking about barking out rules. I'm talking about defining what is acceptable and what is acceptable and what isn't. Communicating it, and most importantly, living it. Great leaders know this. People will rise or fall to the level of clarity they're given. You can't expect someone to honor your values if they've never heard them. You can't hold someone accountable to a standard you've never set. And you can't be surprised when dysfunction shows up if you've left the door wide open for it. We often avoid setting boundaries because we think it will make us look controlling or harsh. But the truth is, boundaries are not walls, they're bridges. They don't shut people out. They give people a clear, safe path to walk on. And when they're communicated with consistency and compassion, they create trust. They remove confusion. And they make difficult people a little less difficult. I once worked with a leader who struggled with a team member who constantly interrupted meetings, derailed conversations, and monopolized everyone's time. For months, the leader vented about it privately but said nothing directly.
Why?
Because they didn't want to seem mean. They thought maybe the person would just figure it out. But that didn't happen, because difficult people rarely self-correct. And silence, when it comes to leadership, isn't kindness, it's confusion. Eventually, the leader pulled the team member aside and said, I value your input, and I need you to give others the space to speak as well. Here's how we'll handle discussions moving forward. And just like that, clarity replaced assumption. Structure replaced tension. That moment didn't just change the behavior, it strengthened the culture. The biggest leadership mistake is assuming that everyone plays by the same rules. They don't. Some people will test your limits just to see if they exist. And if they find none, they'll keep pushing until the environment becomes toxic. But when you draw the line, with grace and firmness, you're not pushing people away. You're protecting the purpose of the team. That's leadership. Setting expectations also means defining how conflict is handled. If someone gossips, if someone disrespects others, if someone refuses to be a team player, what happens next? If your answer is a nothing, you've just handed control over to the dysfunction. But if you address it with truth and consistency, you take the power back, not to control people, but to preserve the mission. The beautiful thing is that most people, when they understand the expectations, will honor them. They want direction. They want structure. They want to know where the boundaries are because that gives them confidence. That gives them freedom to operate without fear of accidentally stepping over a line they didn't know was there. And for those who refuse to honor the boundaries, you'll know quickly. And that clarity is a gift. Because now you're not wasting time wondering if the problem is you. You're not trying to decode mixed signals. You've made the expectations clear, and if someone chooses to disrespect them, you can act decisively,
if it was the same problem, why is it taking longer to fix in our neighborhoods?
This is where courage meets leadership.
Why is the train taking so long to fix? We got places to be.
Hard things. It requires follow through. It requires being willing to make someone uncomfortable for the sake of the greater good.
You want to know what I gotta say?
That's not easy.
Jersey City is so diverse.
It's necessary.
So why do we treat black people the way we do?
They grow stronger in the shadows.
Oh, we need a medic.
And the longer you let the discomfort
right here.
simmer, the harder it becomes to fix. Here's what strong leaders understand. Boundaries are not about control. They're about consistency. Expectations are not about perfection. They're about direction. When you create an environment where people know what's expected and what's allowed, you create a culture that is safe, respectful, and focused. So when you find yourself working with someone difficult, ask yourself, have I set the boundary? Have I communicated the expectation? Have I made it clear what this team, this mission, this culture stands for, and what we won't tolerate? Because people can't meet a standard they can't see, and they can't respect a boundary they've never been shown. Great leaders don't just react to behavior. They shape it through vision, through clarity, and through the quiet power of consistent boundaries. Clarity isn't confrontation. It's leadership in its most respectful form. When we think of leadership, we often picture strength, command, confidence. But one of the greatest signs of leadership isn't how loud someone speaks. It's how calm they remain when things get chaotic, especially when they're dealing with difficult people. Because that's where the real test lies, in your ability to remain grounded when someone else is trying to throw you off balance. Have you ever noticed how toxic people tend to provoke? Not necessarily because they're trying to be difficult. Sometimes it's just how they've learned to get attention, to feel in control, or to manipulate their environment. And what happens when we respond emotionally? We give them exactly what they want. We give them power they haven't earned. We get pulled into the spiral. But here's the truth. Smart, strong leaders don't get hooked. They don't match chaos with chaos. They don't let someone else's behavior decide their own. Because the moment you allow someone's toxicity to dictate your tone, your response, or your mindset, you're no longer leading. You're reacting. There's a kind of leadership that's rooted in calm presence. It's the kind that doesn't rush to defend itself, doesn't escalate just to feel heard, or doesn't take every jab personally, because it understands that staying calm doesn't mean being passive. It means staying in control. And when you're in control of yourself, you're in a position to influence everything else. I once watched a leader handle a confrontation with someone who was passive-aggressive, sarcastic, and clearly trying to provoke a fight. And instead of rising to the bait, the leader just listened. Really listened. Not to agree, but to understand. And when it was time to speak, they responded, not with a comeback, but with clarity, with empathy, with strength. And guess what happened? The energy in the room shifted. The person who came in swinging didn't know what to do with the calm. Because there's no fuel for drama when there's no reaction to feed on. Now, let's be honest. It's not easy. Staying calm in the face of difficult people takes practice. It takes self-awareness. It takes knowing your triggers and refusing to let them run the show. But every time you choose presence over provocation, you grow as a leader. And you model something powerful for your team. Because people don't follow your words, they follow your state. Think about it. When a storm hits, what do people look for? Shelter, stability, the calm in the chaos. And if you're the calm, they'll come to you. Not because you're always right, but because you're steady, consistent, grounded. That's what makes people feel safe. That's what makes them trust your leadership. And here's the kicker. When you stop taking toxic behavior personally, you stop carrying it emotionally. You create space between their chaos and their clarity.
Them rickety vans,
their behavior
them buses, them charter buses. When the train stations here in downtown been already fixed, if it was the same problem, why is it taking longer to fix in our neighborhoods?
It doesn't mean you ignore bad behavior.
Why is the train taking so long to fix? We got places to be.
You don't yell. You address. You don't gossip. You communicate.
You want to know what I gotta say?
Unproductive arguments. You steer
Jersey
conversations
City
toward resolution.
is so diverse.
Not because it's easy, but because it's effective.
So why
and over
do
time,
we treat black
kind of calm
people the way
leadership
we do?
becomes contagious.
Oh, we need a medic.
Culture.
Right here.
It de-escalates conflict. De-escalates conflict. It reminds everyone watching that leadership isn't about who can shout the loudest. It's about who can stand the strongest. Now I know there are moments when you'll feel the urge to snap back, to defend yourself, to get even. But in those moments, take a breath. Remember your purpose. Remember who you are. And remember that leadership is never proven by how you act when things are easy. It's proven by how you respond when people make it hard. Your calm doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. It means you're leading from principle, not pride. It means you're choosing what matters most over what feels good in the moment. So the next time you face someone who pushes every button you've got, ask yourself this: do I want to win the argument, or do I want to lead the room? Because you rarely get to do, bocos. And smart leaders always choose the latter. In a world full of noise, the calmest voice in the room carries the most influence. Difficult people will always be part of the picture. You don't get to lead without facing resistance. But here's what great leaders understand: you don't have to control other people, you just have to control yourself. That's where your power is. That's where your influence begins. You set the tone. You shape the culture. You decide whether you feed the fire or lead with clarity and calm. So the next time someone tests your patience, challenges your authority, or tries to shake your confidence, remember this: you don't need to fight every battle. You need to lead the bigger mission. Stay steady, stay intentional. Lead with wisdom, not ego. Because in the end, leadership isn't about overpowering difficult people. It's about becoming the kind of leader no difficult person can derail. That's how great leaders lead.